And we are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony Vicenda. I'm Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP, which is a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard, and skincare alchemy in the Bardic College of Content Creation. Our hope and desire here at Plus One is to help amazing designers find great players who love their games and help amazing players find great designers whose games they can love. We do that a lot of different ways, but once a month we sit down with two guests for a 3-part interview. This month we're actually talking about two-player games that have come out through Zine Club over the last year that I'm super excited about and ready to dive into tonight. But you'll hear from me a little bit, but mostly this is about two creators getting a chance to explore each other's work, looking for moments of resonance, dissonance, connection, and conversation. Really excited to have our two guests on tonight. Let's just go in order of release. So let's start with Alyssa. Why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a little bit about the game that you made that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah, hi y'all. I am Alyssa, pronouns they, them, and I am at A Disaster Queer Online, TTRPG writer and AP performer. And the game that I wrote is UST, or Unresolved Sapphic Tension, which is a two-person flirting game about oblivious lesbians realizing that they are not the only one who is doing some pining.
Awesome. Love it. The number one response we get when pitching this game at booths, because, people will be like, do you have duet games? Like, what games do you have? Like, in it, like for like romance or flirting or other things like that. I will pitch the game and then people will be like, this is too real. I don't know if I can, is one of the very common responses we get to UST. And so it feels like the equivalent of like, some games that are too close to what somebody does for work, and they're like, I don't know if I could feel like that was playing a game for me when some people say it. So really excited. But one of my favorite covers we've ever made. Love the cover art piece. I've got it up on the screen next to us right now. The art's absolutely gorgeous, which is true for both of these games. But
Yes.
this one piece, I remember the first time I saw it, like absolutely fell in love with it. Really excited to dive in tonight. And then let's, Luka, for you, why don't you tell us same things, who you are, what you do, and tell us a little bit about your game.
I'm Luka Brave. I publish under Sighthound Games, like Sighthound and Psychology, which I'm realizing most people didn't get until I tell them that. And I've recently published Shadow Giant 2nd edition, which is a 2-player wolf and cub trope game of a traumatized magical child and the jaded adult who's found themselves unfortunately taking care of that child. And yes, I'm very excited. And also this cat came onto the screen like right before we went live. So I'd really like to know the cat's name and what they have published as well.
Any publication credits for the cat?
No, but they have made quite a few AP appearances. But
go.
the cat is Orchata, and there is a void around here somewhere named Timon.
Love that.
Shadow Giant, it was really fun because when this game got brought on, and this will happen a lot, like where like if I'm not the person who's doing the acquisition for a title, like I heard an actual play on Party of One pod of this and was like, man, I wish this game is so great. Oh man, I wish we should publish it. And then like literally the next day I was looking at our lineup and I was like, oh, Shadow Giant 2E. Great. Wonderful. Super excited about that. And I don't know if we've announced this anywhere yet, but in the server, but the art from this is going to make it onto the front of one of the SIFWA quarterly anthologies. We've got a couple different art pieces for TTRPGs that are going to get featured from the covers of the books because they're trying to draw more attention to the work that the Science Fictions Writers Association, let's say that's what SIFWA stands for, that there's a game section for that also too, so I want to shout that out. Richard does a lot of work with SIFWA, but we also have a lot of creators that we work with who are members of SIFWA, so go check it out if you haven't. Really excited that this was one of the picks, and it was like immediately all the comics people, all the games people fell in love with this cover also too, so like really cool.
Yeah, my artist was amazing. Vicky Lee did all of the art for it, and it's like every time I pull it out I'm like, this is the game I published. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, the art. I'm like, yes, it's great.
So good.
They're at Snickerdoodles, like Snickerdoodle, but with a V on Insta.
Awesome. Well, let's start with our kind of opening question tonight to get the conversation rolling before I hand things over to y'all to talk to each other. And that's I want to just hear, like, we are talking about two-player games, and as excited as people are about solo games, this is one of the most common requests that we get when we're at conventions, when people email in, when I'm talking to people. They're like, well, I only have me and my partner to play with, or I only have me and this one other friend who does things, or I don't have a lot of friends, but I think I could find one person who is also interested in RPGs. And so I'd love to know from both of you, and Luka, we'll start with you for this one, is at what point did you like decide, hey, this is a two-player RPG, something you set down to do, or did it evolve as you were kind of exploring the themes you were creating?
So, first edition, which I published 2.5 years ago now, was actually for a jam, the Badger and Coyote SRD jam. And that's a two-player SRD. And so I like read through the original game, read through the SRD, and just the immediate like thought that came into my mind was like a wolf and cub trope game, especially because the original SRD, it's a, which 2E is as well, is a asymmetric mechanics of both characters interact with the game and the world differently. And I realized honestly after 2E was published, like how many wolf and cub trope pieces of media came out at a very particular time of my life, of like The Last of Us 1, BioShock Infinite, Logan, The Walking Dead video games, like we're just kind of back to back in my late teens to early 20s, just really cemented that wolf and cub brain. And so that was just immediately the idea that came to me. And I was in my first semester of grad school, and the week before finals week, found the jam, had the idea, wrote the entire thing, laid out the entire thing, published it in like 8 days, and was like, oh, I have so many essays to write. And so second edition has grown a lot since first edition, but that like core concept is still the same. And I think the thing that changed the most was making it like more supported as a GM full game rather than changing the like duet nature of it at all.
Cool. Love it. People are very excited about your touchstones in the chat. Mints and Rabbits showed up to Logan and The Walking Dead. We're like, my shit.
Yeah.
I heard BioShock Infinite and my brain short-circuited.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so interesting. Like I, my mind, because I think it was one of the, like, went immediately to like Sweet Tooth, because me, like when I first heard it, because my kids and I had just watched that, and then like, yeah, you start to like, it's almost like the like infinite hallway where all of a sudden your brain starts to zoom out and be like, oh, there's all of this is such a consistent trope. So
I very
so cool
recently picked up the first volume of Pretty Deadly by Kelly Sue DeConnick and was like, oh, and immediately first page there's Wolf and Cub. Like, I was like, it really is, it's everywhere when you have the eyes to see it. And it's just been a very influential trope on me.
Alyssa, I'll let you hop in with the comment you just put in chat also too, and then have you answer the same question.
Yeah, no, the text references Birds of Prey, which I was like, that's not a wolf and cub movie, but of course it is.
Yeah, like it's I guess it's not technically the lone wolf,
but
and because it's kind of the group. But yeah, Birds of Prey, like I'm so not a DC person really, but my roommate at the time was like, I'm giving you the DVD, you need to sit down and watch this movie. And I was like, and correct, this is great. But yeah, like that, weird little kid who's important in some way and someone is after them and they have powers and they're wrapped up in everything. And then this adult who is so out of their depth it's like, it really is everywhere, and it always is. I really like it.
As a longtime youth worker, like strong vibes just in real life also too. But I think in 3E we'll explore the full Birds of Prey setup where it's one wolf and multiple cubs. So I'd also love to see an AP.
Some of the example characters in this.
even in AP where somebody is playing like, no, I'm going to play 2 or 3 cubs that you have to keep an eye on, I think would work just fine in the current
Yeah.
edition also too. So
Triplets.
excellent. Alyssa, same question though. Tell us a little bit about like where the decision to make this a 2-player game kind of evolved out of.
Yeah, I mean, this game started kind of as a shit post. I was talking about a TTRPG character with a friend who was in the same game, and they were useless lesbians. And so it's just like, I have the high ground, but instead of sword fighting, it's just flirting and realizing that you're into each other. So it's a hack of Just Levine's I Have the High Ground, which is a 2-player fencing precursor to a fight game. So it was always sort of thought of as a 2-person game. I actually did a lot of thinking to try to make it into a more than 2-person game, but it uses rock paper scissors mechanics, and once you get over 2 people, that gets real complicated. And so there are formations in my brain of it's like, oh, you're like in a triad and you're trying to like close the V, like
Two people flirting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that did not make it into the final text.
That's
Unresolved
excellent.
sapphic polycule tension.
Exactly.
The greater Seattle polycule.
You're a V and you want it to be a triangle. It's just like more mathematically steady.
My wife has a crush on you.
Exactly. We saw you across the bar.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like I said, I'm super excited to dive into both of these. They're each doing very different things, but again, in that 2-player format. I always talk about like games are, I think, for me, like a high form of intimacy. Like, and I think this is a lot of us experience this of like, you can not know someone, sit down and play a game with them. As long as it's good, you're like, cool, this is one of my people now. I will die for them. If it's not, maybe you don't feel that way. But like small player count games invite that intimacy in an entirely different way, especially 2-player games. Another call out to Party of One. I just listened to Jeff and I think it was Jeff and Avery playing We Write Cathedrals in secret. I'm probably butchering the title a little bit. But it was like that game is also exploring like the very intimate space of 2 players writing letters to each other, 2 queer people who like these are letters and margins of saying secret codes to each other, and as well as direct letters, and like just the intimate space that 2-player games get into of depending on each other. So it's so fun, and these games both approach that in just tremendously different ways. I think that the like description I've been using leading up to this has been like friendship, power, and sapphic love like are explored within the games, like all the things we want. But yeah, super excited to dive in. We're gonna just kind of kick things over to y'all to continue the conversation. As I said in our pre-show, like I'll hop in if I have thoughts, but you certainly don't have to wait for me. Luka, we're gonna have you ask the first question again. So if go ahead and queue up one that you want to ask Alyssa, and then once that kind of reaches a natural point, Alyssa, you can respond with questions. If there's follow-ups, there can be follow-ups. If the conversation drags a little bit, I'll hop in and prompt the next person to go, and then I've got a couple questions we're gonna ask at the end. But Luka, go ahead and take it away with the first question.
Perfect. Sounds good. So the first question that I had written down is relevant to what we were already discussing, because I just got out of a couple years of grad school, so I was like, I've never done a Twitch live stream before. I need my notes and my notebook and everything. But I was wondering if you did have touchstones outside of the TTRPG space, because obviously it's a hack of I Have the High Ground and was inspired by useless lesbian TTRPG characters, many such cases. But I was wondering, like, if you like had other like media that you were like basing it on, or like took inspiration from. I was very curious about that.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I feel like it is Tony, I think in the pre-show or when we introduced it, was like, some of this is too real. Maybe this is too real and I can't actually play this game. So it's a little inspired by reality. And I think it's inspired by sort of more relationships that I would like to see than like extant media touchstones. I feel like there's maybe some like She-Ra in there a little bit. I'm sure there are others that I just can't pull right now, but
I very like so much of the good like chewy sapphic representation is happening in the like children's cartoon space,
Mhm.
and like trying to get through like, no, it's crazy. Like sit down and watch it. And they're like, the She-Ra cartoon. I'm like you don't understand, please. Yes, She-Ra. I cried for like 2 days after Korosami with canon. Like I understand.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about this, but I would love to hear more, which is I'm not familiar with like the Badger. Also, I have my own notes too that I'm
Huge
also
fan.
referring to. So I'm not familiar with Badger and Coyote, but I'd love to hear more about like the 1E of the game and the thought behind like the revision in the new system that you're doing for
Yeah.
2E.
So I when I published 1E and like did the Badger and Coyote jam, I was still very much a new designer, and I have a lot of different like artistic and creative experience in a lot of different mediums, but was fairly new to TTRPG design. And my kind of go-to approach to a new medium is just spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And so I like, as I said, had the idea and published it 8 days later, and was like a little bit surprised like what a big response that it got from
Mhm.
people. Because I'd already published like 15 TTRPGs like in the year that I've been designing, just kind of rapid fire. And that one was the first that I like kind of really tried to like go hard on, and like the design and everything. And one he was designed like in like Canva, like free. like um but I think like my passion for the trope just like really came through and spoke to people. And it was also one of the first ones that I used like a really voicey narrator
Mhm.
for. And people like really clicked with that and clicked with the narrator and just like the style of it. Um, and so I was really drawn to Badger and Coyote, like using the wolf and cub trope for it, like I said, because of that those asymmetric mechanics. And then another thing that got brought over to 2E from Badger and Coyote is the communication barrier between the player characters.
Okay.
And originally they're animals. They don't speak the it is actually a badger and a coyote that you're playing with. And I Coyotes are my favorite animal, so I was like, coyote game, give. Um, but I was like, okay, that those like asymmetric mechanics, the communication barrier, I was like, I feel like that can be really applicable to human characters also, but like how do you like find that in?
Mhm.
Um, and so I really liked that, like, you know, Duet, but they have different ways of interacting with the game world. I thought worked so well for like both like child and adult characters, but then also like magical supernatural child with 11 blowing things up with her mind powers. um and then bringing into 2E, I had kept wanting to revisit it, partially because I did it so quickly during finals, and partly because I knew I had more to say about this topic and with this game. Um, but for as much like support as 1E got, I heard from a number of people like you were saying earlier, duet games are so intimate, and when there's not the support and structure there, that can be scary, like when it's just these two people. And so I had wanted to just like kind of scaffold a little bit more coming out of 2 years of teaching college English classes. So it's like, okay, let's scaffold this. Um, and so my main inspiration for doing 2E was that I wanted a lot more like for the game to be doing the GMing more
Mhm.
than those players in the moment having to come up with stuff. Because when you're playing Badger and Coyote and it's just the two of you, you're like, I'm gonna bite something, I guess. Like there's not as much of that pressure to be like telling like a
Mhm.
story in that like same way. And so I wanted the game to be pulling more weight. Um, and so like that was kind of the inspiration for going back to it. And then while I was going back to it, I really favor bespoke mechanics, kind of both as a designer and in the games that I play. And so I had wanted to kind of build on that original like foundation of Badger and Coyote, and ended up kind of keeping the core concept of those original asymmetric mechanics and then making them like uh tried to make them more thematically fitting for who these like individual characters were. And so the Shadow has this dice tower that they have to knock down, and it's that balance of like the like kinetic like childish-ishness, but then the balance of like, do you really smack it and then risk the dice falling off, and then those are problems in the game, or like, do you go too gentle and then that causes problems also. And then the Shadow, I'm my I think everyone has like an old man game that they play, and mine is Yahtzee. I love Yahtzee. um and I really like the kind of like risk versus reward of, do I go for something safer versus do I try
Mhm.
to go for something and maybe not get it? And I thought that that worked with the giant of like, playing it too safe means that you're constantly not going to do things great and there's going to be a ton of complications, versus maybe you try for something and it just absolutely doesn't happen. And so I liked putting that kind of stress on the Giants player of like, are you gonna risk it and maybe things get fucked up, or like, so yeah, that trying to design towards more like ludonarrative harmony and making things a little more textured and choice based rather than just luck of the dice.
Yeah, I have in all caps in my notes "semantics of play" because the, like, knocking
Yeah.
down the dice tower is so
Hmm.
evocative and fun. I love that as a mechanic.
Thank you.
I want to hop in real quick because there is something that I want to pull out and highlight on that you mentioned as part of the continuity, Luca, and that is the voice of the narrator, because this is something we talked about in editing, because
Mm.
like it was, I think it kind of like kicked up from one, like I always call out whenever a creator is like, I want my narration to have a voice. I'm like, cool, but you got to bring it. Like you
Yeah.
cannot, like you can't just kind of do it. And it's even better to almost like introduce the voice to people so that it feels familiar and they know what's going
Hmm.
on. There's a couple games that do this incredibly well. Defy the Gods doesn't do that, but Chris has just a natural like conversational style in the way that she writes
Yeah.
that comes across really well. Yours really did a great job of bringing in
Thank
like
you.
the southern tones of language and other things like that, and it came up in the editing process sometimes with the push and pull. But can you kind of talk about that decision a little bit and how it carried through both?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've used that kind of voicey narrator in a couple of my games so far, and Shadow Giant is definitely the longest and most consistent of those. Um, and I came to TTRPGs from a fiction
Mhm.
background, and so that kind of narrational style was something that I'd had like previous practice with. Um, but with Shadow Giant 2e, I wanted it to be a little bit more well, in the fiction, like in the universe, like this is a figure, a being of some sort that is talking to these two, like kind of in the BioShock Infinite, there's always a lighthouse way of like there's always a shadow, there's always a giant, and these two players are the ones who are going to be the shadow and giant of this story. And so there's this kind of mystical universe figure who's like walking you through this journey that you're about to go on. Um, but a lot of the meta reasoning for it was that I've also been a like disability specialist for over a decade now, and so I wanted the book to be able to have a audiobook version. I've been leading a like TTRPG audiobook initiative through Chimera Hearts, which check out Chimera Hearts. They're great. It's a indie TTRPG volunteer network. Does a lot of initiatives with like accessibility and supply, and it's really great. And you can find that initiative on my website, also psychound.com. Two H's, like hound. um, and so I wanted it to be able to have an audio book. And so as I was writing it, like reading it out loud to make sure it would sound good. And then also the 2-player, I wanted it to be very accessible to people who hadn't potentially played TTRPGs or non-D&D TTRPGs or 2-player before, that they could just sit down with this book, open it, read it out loud to each other, and by the end of the book, they would be playing. And so a lot of the non-artistic side of it was like accessibility and like practicality of, it's going to feel a lot better to sit down and read something that sounds like a storybook as you're like making your characters and learning the mechanics than like dry like technical writing. But yeah, the narrator very much became like a person in my head as I was writing through it. And I did end up having to do a lot of like research into Southern American English dialects, like as during the editing process of me being like, is this a me thing or is this a Southern thing? Like kept getting the tags like, was this on purpose? I'm like, was it on purpose? And so I learned a lot about Southern American English that I'm like, I didn't realize that was a Southern thing, but now I know why people didn't understand me when I said that before. But yeah, I so it was both like inspired by the practicality and the accessibility, and also it was just fun for me to write that way.
Yeah.
And that's how I talk. So
Awesome. I think it's your question.
oh, let me pull my list back up. Yeah, so on a similar topic, I was wondering, which this may be doing sapphic violence again, so it's more inspired by real life. What was the reasoning behind the win cycle? Because like I went back and looked at I Have the High Ground, and I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, but I Have the High Ground is very like, at least using the language of like dueling and fencing to talk about this like, you know, emotional like social cycle. And UST is very like, all right, listen, if you're genuine, then this is what will happen. And so I was wondering like, how did you decide on those 3 things, and how did you decide which one would win over the other ones and why? And I was like, I spent like 5 or 6 years as a butch lesbian. So when I was reading it, I was like, oh god, this is like physically painful to read through. So it was like it very much scanned for me, and also I wanted to ask why the decision making process, or if it was just a natural like, well, this is what we do.
That's so funny. I highly recommend Tales Yet Told for Our Lives in the Woods did a episode using UST. And if you want some violence done against you, I highly recommend listening to that episode. I was messaging Kendo while I was listening to it, and I was just like, oh, this was just like a high school relationship that I had. Did not need to be dragged back into this. Thanks.
The sapphic situation.
Yeah.
Many such cases. Yeah.
Many such cases. So I'm not familiar with fencing, so I'm just like, okay, I assume that what Jess has written here is accurate to the sport.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. But genuinely, it's a very strange endeavor for me to have undertaken, because I am not someone who recognizes flirting when it was happening. So having to sort of break out behaviors into categories was a strange choice for me. But I went by sort of what is the mood that you're evoking in this particular like fencing move from I Have the High Ground, and sort of what is the conversational equivalent. And then I just sort of tried to come up with a bunch of behaviors and like flirtations that would fit under each of those categories, and work through like, okay, does this cycle actually make sense? No, maybe it makes more sense if it goes the other way. And one thing that ended up happening is that in I Have the High Ground, you want to like, if you get the most points, then you win. And here it's sort of flipped in that if you get the most points, you're the one who has to say like, hey, I have feelings for you, and I think you have feelings for me, which is not a win. That is a social nightmare. So
I that was exactly my like thought when I was reading it too, because it was like, well, the loser is getting points, and usually in a TTRPG, it's like, oh, you have the most points, and now you can do this ability, and that's good. And I was like, it's interesting that it's flipped. And then I was reflecting on those years in my 20s, and I was like, no, this is great. You have the information now. The ball's in your court. That's like the worst thing you can do to a lesbian.
The worst.
Yeah. But yeah, I like, as I said, I was reading that cycle, and especially like reading the examples, I like kept having to put it away. I was like, okay, I like need to like take a minute and not reflect on this too hard. Um, but yeah, it was, I love when like a piece of media or art or anything is like, you look at it and you're like, well, that doesn't seem right, and then you think about it for 5 minutes and you're like, oh no, that's right. Yeah,
I wish it
they knew
weren't.
exactly what they were doing. Like, um, so yeah, I was very interested in the decision making process behind the cycle, which I didn't expect that it was more based off of I have the high ground and then trying to translate those moves into. But hearing your explanation of I'm too close to this and I couldn't actually examine these real experiences, I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Tracks. Yeah. Okay, Tony stole one of my questions, but that's fine.
I'm sorry. I should have just been more patient.
So the game can be played like as a one shot or as a couple series or as a longer term game, and you have rules for like longer multi-session playing. Do you think that there's like sort of a sweet spot for it or a length of play that that you prefer for Shadow Giant?
Yeah, so so it was very interesting making a game so heavily rooted in tropes. And I think that's both why it works as a like kind of agnostic like duet game. And also it was very hard not being like, well, this is what happens in The Last of Us, and this is what happens in Logan, um and so a lot of the like touchstones for it were quite varied, both in the like medium and length that they are. Um, and so I wanted it to have that flexibility of like you can sit down, read the book, finish the game in 3 hours, and just like have that kind of experience, or keep coming back to it. And I haven't gotten to test play a long term game yet. That like 12 session cap was me doing some math on the number of cards versus the number of scenes typical in a session, and being like, you're probably gonna run out around 13 or 14, so we'll cap it at 12. But I definitely wanted it to be able to be like a campaign kind of game. And I have and do had and do have a lot of ideas for supporting that like campaign play, that I ran out of space and the 60-page limit, because I also laid out the game, and so like as I was laying it out, I was like, okay, and we're cutting that section and we're cutting that section, and trying to hit that exactly 60-page mark. So there's definitely like I want to do more like clocks and like kind of like art, like narrative, like 3 acts kind of like thing with it. So as Tony was saying,
3E.
3E,
2.5E is fine.
2.5,
More
we'll
options.
get that like subtitle on there. But so I would love to like be able to test play, or for people to do like actual plays if they want to kind of get more of that like longer term story arc. But in the like tests, those like short term tests that I did, I was like, I can't tell if we're just happening to pull the perfect cards to like make this story like go exactly. but I think that like heavy reliance on trope is why it works as well as it does. Because anyone who's seen pretty much any American or English speaking media is like, oh, this is like when that happened, and so it just like keeps play flowing really quickly. 'Cause it's like, oh, you pull a card. Oh, I think an agent is gonna pull up, and you can immediately like grab that archetype and just like keep things moving. Um, so having someone who's like on the same wavelength with like tone and touchstones is really helpful. Um, but yeah, I'd love to be able to see how it holds up better with those like longer term campaigns.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's such a rich dynamic. I would love to see how, like, the attitude of the giant sort of changes towards the shadow if you were doing
Yeah,
campaign play.
yeah, because it's so hard going into a wolf and cub game at the beginning and not being
Mhm.
like, oh, and here's my little guy, the shadow. You know, it's like the player loves that trope, and the character doesn't know that they're in that trope
Right.
yet. So that is difficult, but I very much want to, like put in those like kind of act structure of like, okay, if you hit like three of this like list of emotional beats or scenes or whatever, now you're in the next act and this is what that means, like,
Mm.
just kind of keep up that like scaffolding and support from the game, and then keep pulling in those really tropey like touchstones.
Yeah, I mean, if the change from 1.0 to, like, 2.0 was giving a little more GM support, then this seems like a great
Hmm.
2.5 is that sort of scaffolding for long-term play.
Exactly, just need a little bit more than 60 pages. Gonna give me a little bit more of that printer money. um Let me see. Yeah, so I again related, one of the questions that I had was you had some like example like character like archetypes and stuff that were similarly that like kind of tropey. Like I was immediately like calling to mind like either different characters in different mediums or like different characters in like past like campaigns that I've played. Um and I'd noticed that a lot of them, especially, were very like opposites attract,
Mhm.
which I feel like especially in like gay characters and like it's like the red gay blue gay like
Yes.
that kind of thing. So yeah, I just wanted to like hear your thoughts on those like tropey like the archetypes and like the opposites attract, and like if are those examples like characters that you and like your like friends have played out in this game, or like APs, or were they just kind of off the dome?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tropey game. It's also a very, like, fan fiction-y game. So, like, UST being unresolved sapphic tension in this case, but unresolved sexual
Yeah,
tension generally in sort of
yeah,
fanfic spaces. It's like a 5+1 fic because once you get
yeah.
5 clues, then you have to
Oh
do
my god,
it.
it is.
The
I
moment of
didn't put that
realization is
together.
called like O in
Yeah,
italics,
yeah,
which
the
is an
iTap. Yes.
extremely yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's very tropey in a lot of those ways. And yeah, no, for the sort of example characters, it was just stuff that I wanted to see. So
Mhm.
the sort of high society drama one, like I don't care about, like, the Bridgerton kids. I just
Yeah.
wanna be 2 Spencer chaperones who are, like,
Yeah.
biting at each other.
Yeah.
Like so it was
Yeah.
really just, like, things that were interesting to me personally. In the playtests, we had one it was Killing Eve. Basically, it was like a serial killer and a
Huge.
detective.
Yeah.
And then right after that, we had an extremely cozy, like, we keep meeting each other's like AU selves like across the space-time continuum,
Yes. Yeah.
which was extremely cute. And those ones were a little more similar. So I just wanted to give
Mhm.
sort of a range of you can be anything here.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that both of the games have a very specific story focus, but have that like kind of genre setting agnostic like air to them. But yeah, I the like longest term campaign that I ran, I like went into it being like, and here is the plot, and then very quickly it's like, this is just lesbian drama of the game, like the entire kind of the entire thing. And I wish that was true of mediums that were not
Yeah,
TTRPGs. But
for sure. That actually rolls right into my next question, which is like, yeah,
huge.
your game is setting and sort of genre agnostic, and you give tables that people can roll on if
Mhm.
they want some like options for how to set it. And obviously, your media touchstones are all over the place in terms of
Yeah.
like genre, not in a bad way, just like this is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
trope that you find across various like genre and setting spaces. But is there like a favorite or something that you'd really like to see? I mean, you call out like gothic something punk, I think, or like horror punk in there,
Yeah.
but are there other like specific settings that you'd like to see the game played in?
Yeah, I one of the test plays that I did with Cody Gonzaga, shout out Cody. It was our like first time like actually calling each other, and we had a very limited amount of time. So we're like, "Hi, nice to meet you. Let's jump into it." And we rolled randomly for everything. Like rolled for like the genre, all of the characters, everything, and then immediately jumped into it. And we ended up doing a like cyberpunk like dystopia like thing, which isn't a genre that I'm like super familiar with really. But it just like we were just immediately able to like boom 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 like call on all of these different things and make these decisions and like roll into it. And which was really fun. And like when I make lists like that, like roll tables, I'm like sitting there with my dice, like rolling over and over to see if I can find something that doesn't work
Mhm.
together. And so rolling a lot of like the genres and subgenres, I'm like, what would that look like? Like, what would that even be like? Um, but I kept all of them because all of them I was like intrigued by, even if I
Yeah.
couldn't think of like any examples. Um, and my kind of like genre that I keep going back to over and over is Southern Gothic,
Mm.
for reasons that are maybe self-explanatory if you are familiar with me. Um, but honestly, the like story that I'd want to see with it is less like genre and setting, and more just I want more butches. I want some butch giants. And I had said this to Daniel the Copper Compendium when I did an interview about 1E for 5 minutes, not 5E on YouTube. Shout out to that also. Um, and he was like, what have you like not seen in this game that you want to see? And like when I was talking to Vicky, my artist, I was like, go ham, like different cultures, different characters, no white men giants. It was like it's hard to find like an example that's not. And I mean, she went and did a bunch of research and just like came up with like such like cool characters. Um, but I was like, where is my like wolf and cub with just an awful asshole butch? Like, just what I
That's
personally want and need. And so now I'm like, okay, play UST to set up the backstory of the giant, and then they get separated
yes.
somehow. And now I was like, oh, that could. So I love the idea of like chaining like games like that. So now I'm like, okay, how can you make an awful butch and then lead into
Well,
Shadow
and
Giant game? Um,
speaking of chaining games, a second ago I was going to make a joke about Alyssa's game being a perfect OSR game, because in classic old school play, people are always like, "I'm going to use this game over here to play this
mm-hmm.
micro game," and so like
Yeah,
being like, "Hey, our two characters want to fall in love with each other, but we don't realize it yet. How do we do that? Hey,
yeah,
and we're just going to pull you in and put you like at campfire scenes and use UST, and y'all will play this over the course of the rest of the game until you realize it," is 100% the kind of thing that OSR games would
yeah.
do. But here's my
I love
bigger,
that.
weirder pitch also. Are either of y'all familiar with the comic book series? It's got two short run series out so far called Golden Rage.
No.
Okay, so here's the elevator
bad?
pitch for Golden Rage, and then I'll tell you the horrible dystopian realities of it. Is essentially
Okay.
Golden Girls meets like Battle Royale.
Oh
So
no!
it is
That's
all
really
older women fighting each other viciously on an isolated island for survival, because in this world, once a woman hits menopause, she can no longer contribute to society. So let's just send them all to an
Send her to a
island
fight island. Yeah.
to fight each other. And then
Yeah.
a young woman who's had a hysterectomy gets dropped off. So here's my pitch. You start with the 20-year-old Shadow
Mhm.
showing up with an older butch giant. And then at certain points you switch away to the UST relationship that older
Yeah.
butch giant is having with another woman on the island while they're trying to
Oh,
survive.
huge.
And it's the same
Huge.
player set, but you're gonna morph characters as
Yeah.
you go. And so that's my new
Oh,
big mega game chained pitch for how these two games come
that's
together.
very good.
So
That's what's happening in the background of The Giver. This old lady fight island.
I have two things, which is one, my partner is actually playing a home game of The Corrupted by Navarre C. Jackson with Navarre,
Excellent
and
game.
they're doing the plot of The Last of Us. They have never played it, and the other person they're playing with has never played it. But the Joel, is that the man's name? The Joel
Yeah.
character is just an older Korean butch woman. So there we go. We got it. It's just in a home game.
So good.
Huge. Amazing. Yeah.
And then the other thing is that the only OSR game I think I've read is a most bloody devotion, which is Isabel Rubinstadt, so the author of Girl Frames,
Yeah.
sort of cannibalism, very
Mhm.
gender OSR, where your stats are like flight, fight, fawn, freeze.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which I think would be an incredible toxic mashup with
Yeah.
UST.
Um,
Okay, how do we get all of these? I really
Isabella
love
is so
that.
great. Oh, yeah, but also like that is like it is. I think a lot of story game designers do it also, but it is one of the most fun things of like the OSR being like, hey, the big game we're playing, the rules are so loose as to not even matter,
Mhm.
and we're just shoving all these other games in here to make it do other things that we want to do, and it works just fine. Like
And when I was reading UST, also, it very much brought to mind like firebrands to me. Also, of like this would be a good little like firebrands in a like
Mm.
broader, useless sapphic universe. Of like, okay, and then this is the UST scene, and then here are the other like, yeah, that's really good. Oh.
excellent.
Which there are some old lady giants in here that I
Oh yeah,
don't
I
know if you can-
noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I popped
Really
I
good.
popped the art up for the chainsaw
Okay.
as we were
Yes.
as that conversation was happening, because it's like I know exactly what art should be on the screen right now. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love all of the art, and I also like each kind of like section, like each little chapter. I use different like example players who are wolf and cubs from other media, but like swap the places of them. So I have like Lee and Clementine, but Clementine is the giant, and one of them is Birds of Prey. I have Harley and Cass. And so the other like thing that I'd really like to see is like with the communication barrier, I like give a couple of like options and examples. And I'd love to see a character who signs, who's like deaf or hard of hearing, and uses like ASL or a different like sign language as the communication. Because I took ASL for a number of years in college, and I'm like, I feel like if there was a game that could like slot really easily into, so yeah, if someone with a video AP wants to do a little ASL, I'd also love that.
Awesome. Luke, I think it's your question.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, Mech second moods. Um, so one of the other things that I think you maybe just straight up said in the game also, which I think we had like very similar verbiage in our games of like these are meant to be broad and interpretable and like a launching off point for the stories that you're telling. Um, is so I was very UST is very like efficient. It gets in, it's like this is the horror that I'm about to put you through, and it gets out. So there's not a lot of like words and text in the game, but it does a lot physically with what is there. Whereas Shadow Giant, I was like, okay, what can I cut? How small can I make this section to just? Because I have can't shut up disease, and that does include my written work as well. So I think this ended up being like 13,000 words or something. Yeah. So yeah, I was curious about like the decision to keep things fairly broad and keep the mechanics like very paired, like that, just that one central like rock paper scissors mechanic. And then even the like points scoring and everything, like it always really impresses me when people do so much with like such little time, because like you could explain the rules of the game in 30 seconds and then cry over it for like 5 hours afterwards. So yeah, I was curious to hear you talk about like those very like kind of broad like launching off point sort of prompts rather than like getting specific with it.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that a lot of it was trying to make something that is more sort of open and genre agnostic. And also, I don't want to tell people how to flirt or what flirting is. So let's
Yeah.
leave it up to you. Let's leave it
Don't
up to
listen
your
to me.
table. And yeah, I think that as a writer, I also sometimes, maybe to my peril, sort of parse things down to very few words. In
Mhm.
my day job, I do research and then translate research to people who hate numbers. So
Yeah.
I am trying to, yeah, I think that that sort of ethos of let's make it as sort of broad but informative as possible drives a lot of how I write. And I don't have the confidence to be like, yeah, I'm making a narrator. They're going to talk in this voice, and this is how they're going to explain it. Like, I adored the narrator in your game, but I was also like,
Thank you.
how did you decide that? That sounds so stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I mean it's I don't know how many like words UST is, but like I think the actual like game part of the book is like 15 pages or something. And I think it took me like an hour to read through it because I kept being like, I have to close the tab and like do something else. I can't. This is too rough. Um, but yeah, I should have assumed the answer would be useless sapphic designer who's also like, I don't know how to win this game. You figure it out. But very very good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Alyssa.
Okay. Yes, I think that this is my final question that I have made already, but so one of the mechanics is pulling cards, and different suits correspond to different types of prompts. And I was super curious about the decision that at the top of the game, you decide that each player responds to two of the suits rather than
Mhm.
like as you pull them, like whatever suit you pull is the prompt that you respond to. So I'd
Mhm.
love to hear more about like how you decided that that would be the sort of mechanic for it.
Yeah. So I part of it was that like scaffolding and like support that I was talking about
Mhm.
earlier. And I think a lot of my decision making with like how the book would support players was also inspired by my first several years of TTRPG experience. I was playing with like mostly theater kids. And I'm very much a like, I will balance the energy of the people that I'm with. So if the people are quieter, then I'm gonna be like bigger energy. And if they're bigger energy, then I'm gonna kind of like sit back. And so just like thinking on that, like, okay, there are two people. One of them has a lot of TTRPG experience. They're really excited about the idea. They like have a lot of ideas, a lot of energy. Is this going to turn into a pseudo GM and then the person who is like also in this like story? And so trying to keep that balance of like, this is more or less kind of like a 50-50. They are, you know, adding to the world and the story and the decisions and all of that. And so the suits was one of the ways that I decided to try and do that, is at the top of it, because those suits are let's see if I even remember. I don't know. This is the problem with
Who wrote this
publishing
game?
1 million. I wrote it mostly at like 4 in the morning, in my defense, because I have very obtrusive animals who don't like me to do anything except for spend time with them. So I have to do all of my work while they are sleeping. But yeah, so the suits are spades are threats, hearts are NPCs, like important NPCs that get introduced. Diamonds are opportunities for the characters, like they might get to roll on the supplies table or find information. And then clubs are like new locations that you discover that sometimes tie into backstory or they'll end up being important. And so a lot of my like decision making when designing this game was, how do I make rules feel like play, instead of being like, you have to be cooperative and you have to be pro-social and you have to let the other person talk. It's just like, how does that just be part of the game? Again, I taught college for 2 years, and so trying to be like, okay, I know you have opinions, other students have to be able to participate. um, and honestly, a lot of my like inspiration for these kind of designs was Stephen Brookfield's work on democratizing classroom discussions. I pulled a lot of that into my TTRPG design. um, and so yeah, just deciding like, okay, how do I like get players to be pro-social and like balance who is doing what and make that feel like just part of the play. And so tying those suits to themes and having them decide up front is like, okay, well, if someone is really excited about playing the threats, is like, oh, I can't wait to make us both cry. That's like my main goal, which is usually me in the game. Um, and then another player is like, oh, well, I love like voicing all of these NPCs, and I can do a lot of like silly voices, and I'm really good at accents, you know. Or another player who has read too much high fantasy and they're like, no, I can do the 2 pages of like castle description, like. And so, you know, tying those to themes and then deciding up front is making those moment to moment decisions no longer decisions, and reducing that like cognitive load and any like awkwardness that might be like, well, do you want to do this one or do you want to, and then, you know, let people claim what they're excited about up front and then just like keep things rolling.
Awesome.
Luca, any more
Alright.
questions from you?
I think I think I asked all of mine, or we naturally got to
Cool.
the questions that I had.
That's great.
And a lot of it was hard writing questions because a lot of the reading experience was just like, oh, why would you do this to me specifically?
It sounds like you were taking the processing approach a whole lot within this. And so,
Yeah, I was definitely losing all of the
Awesome. Well, let's look at our final three questions. Alyssa, I'm going to have you start each one of these. But what is the first one is what's one small thing that stood out to you about the other person's work? This could have been a word choice, a picture, any just small little thing that really kind of struck you or hit you as you were reading through.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about how gorgeous the art is already, but specifically the like printerly textures just on the like page numbers and on the section headings were it's so gorgeous and I want to see it in print, like in physical. But it immediately like brought me into a specific mood and I think it did a great job. It looks fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the Riz Crafts. They have like a bunch of different like packs, and they have a Rezo print pack that like made it so easy to do my job because I was like, oh well, it just like already looks like I don't have to do much effort for it to just like look cool. So yeah, the Rizcraft Rezo print pack, definitely recommend it. So worth the bang for your buck. Because I love working with like all of the layouts that I've done like for like +1 experience games for other designers. I'm like, okay, and the file can't be 300 megabytes. You have to stop layering and texturing everything.
Like as long as we can compress it at the end, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm like trying to get it to that like 9.87. But I in graphic design love the like maximalist kind of like approach. In no other areas of my life do I enjoy this except for in graphic design. I mean, I dress like this, you know, and my apartment is very like simple. But I love a very like busy visual effect. And I knew with this one, I'm like, there's so many words. I can't be doing that. And so just getting like those textures in there was my method. And Vicky did like an outstanding job using that in all of the character art. She kept messaging me like, "Is this working? I've never really done anything like this before." And every time I was like, my hair was like blown back by the screen. I was like, "These are so cool. What are you talking about?" But yeah, I love a texture.
Awesome.
Yes. So, little detail that I noticed. I mean, I think the like detail that took up the most of my brain capacity was those like example like archetypes and like the little like because I also love doing the little like example of play, you know, and like every single one is like a paragraph or so, and I would read it and then I'd be like, my mind would like go and like finish writing the fan fiction of these characters, you know. And so yeah, I love those like examples and the like example archetypes you could pull from. Like every single one of those I was like, oh, and I can spin this off into like a whole thing. And so I really appreciated like again in such a short like amount of words I was like, and there are like 18 stories happening in my head now.
Alyssa, what's one thing that would have been different if you had created this game? That's a special move from you, something you would have added on your own flavor, something you would have just done differently.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that came to mind sort of defeats the point of the game, but I'm just like, it wouldn't have been a kid. It would have been like two people playing asymmetrically with different roles, but they'd be able to kiss, which is like a completely different project.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so like it is genuinely difficult loving this trope so much and also like so quickly going to romance with all of like my like TTR, especially like when I'm like a GM, I'm like so quickly like I know exactly your type and I'm about to like explode your brain with this NPC that I'm gonna introduce. Like have had players be like, "Can you give me like 5 minutes while I like, this new NPC?" And I'm like, "That was the point, yes."
Just get a second wolf from The chat.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I loved in the Party of One playthrough, because I mean, like, those episodes aren't super long. They've got like 45 minutes to like tell a story. That like they fairly like halfway through fairly quickly were like, oh, old flame of the giant, and I'm like, yes, that's the shit that I
Exactly.
live for. Because like I'm like a romantic, and so I love romance in stories. And I'm very much like, wow, romance is so cool. I wish that it was real. But I'm like, so it's hard playing with this and not being like, and when is the like romance gonna get here? Like,
So the thread
um,
is like an X, right?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, some of the prompts are like can be interpreted like
Yeah.
old flame of the giant, or like someone new gets introduced and causes like attention issues, and because I'm like you gotta sneak a little bit, you gotta sneak a little bit of that in
Also,
there.
let me go ahead and push. You can have like Wolf and Cub and be adults. Like I don't here spoilers for anybody who isn't caught up on Hacks season 3 in just a minute. Does anybody so if you want to turn it down, does anybody on screen care if I spoil a little bit of season 3 of Hacks?
Uh-oh.
Hacks is Hannah Einbeiner and oh man, why can't I think of the older woman in the show? Anyways, it's two comedians at very different points in their careers, and people have been shipping them since season 1. And in season
Yeah,
3, they do a really great job of giving everybody everything they want without them actually being in a relationship with each other, and it is tremendous. But I'm just saying, you can wolf and cub some adults. It's fine.
it's true.
They can
It's
smoke
true.
just as a treat.
And one of the rules is the giant has to be old in comparison to the
Hmm.
shadow. So it's like, there's room there. I feel like there was some like Australian show that got like 1 or 2 seasons, and it was like two women that had like a significant age gap that was like kind of adjacent to Wolf and Cub, and I watched it a million years ago and don't remember anything other than being like, this could go somewhere. Um,
Look,
but
yeah. If you had created UST, what would have been something that would have been different?
I mean, it would have been a million words longer. It's, I think, the obvious answer. I do not have the willpower to just be. Well, it either would have been a million words longer or it'd be a one-page game. That's like the
Mm.
only way that I can like limit myself. Is I'm like, okay, I have to be able to tag this with one pager so that people looking for one pagers can find it. So I have to fit all of this. But I don't think I could have kept it that minimalist. Like I probably would have had like, okay, and then here are like the scenes that happen, and like, okay, and then there's this clock over here that's doing something, and okay, well, when a player like mentions a backstory detail, then like that's a token. Like it would have been probably more complicated than it needed to be. Um, and I very much admire the simplicity of it and how effective it is, and that's not what would have come out of my hands.
All right. Awesome. Alyssa, what's one thing you never would have thought to include had you created Shadow Giant?
Yeah, so I love asymmetrical playbooks, and I would not have thought of those two mechanics, and especially the way you talked about them with the sort of thinking that the giant has to go through of which
Mm,
dice do I reroll, what am I aiming for, versus the kid getting to knock over a dice tower. They're so fun and
thank
so
you.
thematically resonant, and I would not have thought of those as dice mechanics. I 90% of my time am playing online, and while I am playing with physical dice, it's still like I just don't think about the
Mm,
physicality of things very often, and I really, really appreciate them in this book.
thank you. I have almost exclusively played with people with autistic and ADHD. So the number of people who are just building dice towers anyway, I'm like,
Regardless.
and maybe we'll just use that.
Awesome. Luca, same question.
Um, gosh, I mean, I think I had the opposite problem where I was like, oh, this is hitting like really, it's like really way too close to home. Um, so I might not have included that mechanic because it would just be like too painful to put onto paper, like too real. I'd be like sitting in the therapist's office and being like, okay, so what do you think of this, like the circle? And she'd be like, explain that more. um, but yeah, I that like the simplicity of the rock paper scissors, like, and the like write it down and then you have the like kind of reveal moment is like I really enjoy that and do wants to rope someone into playing it with me now.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed that. But again, it would be 4 times the length that it is right now.
Awesome. Well, this has been so great to have you both on. Like, this is such a great conversation, and have really just kind of loved getting to hear each of y'all like explore each other's work, the questions that you were asking, like the touchstones that y'all were diving into. Also, thank you, chat, for everybody who was here. Also, too, off air, I'll tell the two of y'all something I've heard about Girlframe. It's a secret, juicy secret that people can't hear publicly, but I'll tell y'all afterwards. And but yeah, we have, let's see, what do we got coming up? I don't know what we're doing next week. Who could know? I know that Quinn does, because Quinn's the one who keeps all the things, but it's not in my head right now. I do know that in 2 weeks we're gonna have Brian Flaherty on for our next Intrepid Merchants. We're super excited to dive into that. We'll be back with another episode of Now You've Seen It next month. We've already started lining up those guests. Super excited to get more of those in front of you. And then for Show Me Your Moves next month, Aaron King and I are going to do a review of a lot of the moves that have been submitted so far to the Make Moves Jam. You can find it at ttrpg.link/make moves. Or something similar to that, because I'm messing that up. Also, search it on itch. It's great. You can submit a single PBTA move for a game that exists or doesn't exist. Just have a little fun with the world. But we are going to be doing kind of a walkthrough of things that have been submitted so far for that. We also probably will have some actual plays next month, and I do know that on the 15th, we are going to be doing a special RPG Party launch day stream with Ella Carter from GameFound. GameFound is going to be sponsoring a series of 3 streams talking about some of the indie games that are funding during the RPG Party. RPG Party is their attempt to try to get more people funding RPGs on the platform of GameFound and help showcase how the platform can help small and independent creators succeed. Some of our favorite folks like Infinite Citadel are part of that process. I found a ton of new games. There's a game on there called Murder of Crows that has done such a great job with just like making short animated films on Instagram and TikTok, that they have their first time creators from Europe who have made this cool little, you are playing as crows investigating a mystery game that has 2,300 followers plus on it already. I think it's over 2,500 that they've got just all through organic marketing and the cool stuff that they've been sharing. We've also got Myco Drift that's going to be part of the RPG Party that we're helping co-publish. A bunch of really amazing, cool games by small creators from all over the globe. And we're going to be walking through some of those projects in a special series over the course of September and October, a couple at a time on Tuesdays. Really excited to dive into that. That's a lot about what we're up to. We've always got great new games coming out, so check out RPG Zine Club, where both of these games came out, or everything that we make over at plus1exp.com. Luca, if folks want to find your work, find out more about what you do, follow you generally, what are some of the best places to do that?
So I am Psych Hound on is that going to be backwards or not? I'm Sighthound on Itch, Blue Sky, and Tumblr, if you're still using Tumblr. And that's the only social medias that I have. So
Great.
that's where you can find me. Also in the Chimera Hearts server, if you want to come and talk about accessibility and audiobooks. And we've got a couple of volunteer audiobook narrators. If you have a TTRPG that you want an audiobook made into, and it's been a really great project so far. I have a number of things on my website, which is sitehound.com. And I've got like the audiobook project, a TTRPG book accessibility checklist for designers and writers and layout artists. And then I also talk on there about my long-term project, Spirit Keep, which is a multiplayer campaign-length game to help players grapple with and heal from trauma over long-term play. So if you're interested in any of that, please check out.
Awesome. Love it. Alyssa, where can people find the work you do, all the cool things you're up to?
Yeah, so you can find me on Blue Sky and itch.io at A Disaster Queer. If you're in the Chicago area, you can come out to the Chicago Indie Game Showcase on September 13th. It is a traditionally more video game focused event, but this year they've been doing a lot to bring in TTRPGs. And so I will be tabling there, and so will Plus One EXP.
It's just me. I'm just coming. If you are in the Chicago area, and I don't want to rub it in Sam's face because Sandwich is talking about how hard it is to network in chat, but on Saturday night, we're going to try to get together for just a local RPG folks meetup. If you are in the greater Chicago area, just keep an eye on social media for details about that. I want to go to Pequod's because that's my favorite deep dish pizza in Chicago. It's probably one of my favorite pizzas, period. But we'll figure out a good place for us to hang out and do some hanging out the night before also too, and probably the evening of as well. So awesome. Sorry, I jumped in. Any other things you want to shout out or people can follow you at?
Yeah, so public Girl Frame information. This fall, I am GMing a mini series of Girl Frame with the podcast Goblets and Gays. It is a fantastic table, very raw, very feral, and I'm super excited for folks to be able to listen to it. So keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. Love it. Again, we'll be back with more stuff over the next couple of weeks. Typically, we're on Wednesday nights. Was really glad to have the opportunity to get both of these great folks on a Thursday, though, also. We do have, though we have not announced it yet, the page will go live tomorrow. We are launching our next crowdfunding project on September 29th. It's called the Kingdom Carved Combo. It is 2 games about kingdoms ending or trying to be brought back. One of them is about mall cops who find out that they are the last line of defense against the apocalypse. It's called the Seventh Order. And then the other one is called Ritual Deck King of Games. You are teenagers at a card battling high school where you are possessed by amnesiac spirits and trying to prevent the evil king of games from bringing his kingdom back into power. It is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Inspired CFB games. Very excited about both of these games. They're going to be funding in October. Very excited to dive into both of them also too. But that's all. That's all the promotion I'm doing right now.
I laid out the zine version of that.
Yeah. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. And so really excited about that. We're pulling some of that art forward also too, and some of the other elements. Really excited to see what that team's been up to. Also too, Ritual Deck lets you all be Yu-Gi-Oh! except for one playbook called the Scion, and then you don't have an ancient amnesiac spirit inside of you. You're just fucking rich. And so this has been Now You've Zine It, and now you zine us, and now you zoned. We'll see everybody next time.